Please settle down, everybody. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we have great pleasure in extending a very warm welcome to our Deputy NSA, Dr. Arvind Gupta. He is no new to this subject. He's done this job earlier. He was a member of the National Security Council Secretariat earlier. And thereafter, he moved on to a strategic think tank, and that was IDSA, one of the leading think tanks of the country. And now he's on to this job of the Deputy NSA. So, once again, very warm welcome to you, Dr. Gupta. And now I request him to make his remarks. But before that, I must say, he's been very supportive of our effort here, and whenever we are requested, he comes. So thanks a lot, and on to Dr. Gupta's remarks. Thank you.
General Wedge, Governor John Huntsman, Shri Banerjee, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everyone. It's great to be here and interact with such distinguished galaxy of scholars, both from India and from the US. In fact, somebody asked me when I was coming in, he was still smiling because you are in the government, not supposed to smile. I said, well, it's because I have come to the VIF and I again feel at home. So thank you very much, General Wedge, for inviting me to this very important conference that is being held here today. The Vivekanand Foundation and the Atlantic Council are two important centers of excellence, and they have done excellent work on global issues. And they have also contributed towards furthering the cause of Indo-US relations. The conference has a very rich agenda, as I was looking at the program. And this is being held at a time when President Obama has come and gone, and the excitement that was created during the visit, which was fantastic, has now settled down, and now we are in a position to take a more sober and perhaps more mature view of the Indo-US relations. It's a good time to take a long-term view of where we are headed in this partnership. The agenda that has been included in this conference is truly rich, and you will be discussing the relationship in all its aspects, and you will cover issues ranging from the emerging regional order in Asia, its impact on Indo-US relations, the situation in AFPAC, implications for India, trade and economics, security of the global commons, and so on. A number of distinguished speakers will be making interventions at your conference. We in the government would be keenly looking forward to the outcome of the deliberations of this conference. Now, in my remarks today, I have structured it in the following way. The new government in India has completed almost now 10 months, and foreign policy has been an important priority for the government. Therefore, I thought it would be a good idea to look at the emerging trends in India's foreign policy, and in that backdrop, examine the salience of Indo-US partnership. Let me identify 5 or 6 key trends in India's foreign policy. Beginning with the neighbors, Prime Minister Modi has reached out to all major powers, countries in the extended neighborhood, and has made an outreach to important multilateral and regional groupings. So the foreign policy is quite broad-based. And his recent visit to the Indian Ocean countries of Seychelles, Mauritius, and Sri Lanka has given a strong maritime dimension to India's foreign policy. The signal has gone out that the Indian Ocean will be given high priority in Indian foreign policy, and India would be adopting a comprehensive Indian Ocean policy. The trend of diversification of India's foreign policy, which began in the early years of post-Cold War phase, has now been further intensified. The pace of high-level diplomacy has been truly hectic. Based on some back-of-the-envelope calculations done by us recently, we assess that the PM has met leaders of around 45 countries, and some of them more than once. For instance, he has met President Putin 4 times and interacted with President Obama, President Xi Jinping, and Prime Minister Abe 3 times each at bilateral fora, multilateral meets, and on the sidelines of important summits. He made an unprecedented outreach to the leaders of West Pacific countries when he visited Fiji. In addition, the External Affairs Minister, the National Security Advisor, and the Foreign Secretary have also been meeting their counterparts regularly. The pace of diplomatic engagement will continue in the future as well. The PM will be visiting Germany, France, and Canada shortly. Another trend in India's foreign policy is that it is now being closely aligned with the domestic priorities. For instance, Make in India has become a major plank of Indian foreign policy. Likewise, other flagship initiatives like the development of 100 smart cities, Digital India, Clean India, building of infrastructure, the establishment of defense and manufacturing base in the country, the focus on the R&D, etc., have emerged as the pivot points of Indian foreign policy. Prime Minister Modi has emphasized that in order to deal with the contemporary global challenges of terrorism, climate change, energy, food and water security, new thinking is needed. Several initiatives have been taken in this regard. In the Indo-US context, a joint working group on climate change has been set up, for instance, to deal with this very important problem. The Indian foreign policy also attaches high priority to regional and sub-regional cooperation. India's engagement with SAARC, BIMSTEC, ASEAN, SCO, East Asia Summit, etc., have been reactivated. At the same time, India is also participating in negotiations for RCEP with the ASEAN. India hopes to join the APEC in due course. The Prime Minister has emphasized several times that the use of technology in the resolution of the problems of developing countries is very important. So programs like Digital India or renewable energy, which concern every individual, have also been emphasized. India is also helping other countries to set up cyber cities and such capacities. Several countries have shown interest in collaborating with India in science and technology, R&D, and technological cooperation. It's interesting to note that India's vital interests transcend the immediate neighborhood and extend to strategic neighborhoods in West Asia, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. The Prime Minister, during his recent visit to Mauritius and Seychelles, has also talked about Indian Ocean neighborhood. India is also trying to overcome the constraints of geography, and connectivity is an important part of India's foreign policy today. Better connectivity will improve access to Afghanistan, Central Asia, and CIS countries. In this context, India is participating in the International North-South Transit Corridor and Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline projects, to mention a few, and more would be in offing. The emphasis on maritime security has been discernible. And now to this, we can also add the blue economy or the ocean economy, which the Prime Minister has talked about. India has agreed to work with like-minded partners to preserve the integrity of global commons and reiterated commitment to freedom of navigation and overflights. Joint exercises between the navies and coast guards have been encouraged. India is working with its maritime neighbors, Sri Lanka and Maldives, in the trilateral maritime format to improve maritime domain awareness and cooperation in maritime oil pollution response, search and rescue, etc. The Prime Minister has called on Mauritius and Seychelles and other nations to join the initiative. India has also launched Project Mosam to improve India's traditional and historical linkages with countries with whom it has shared maritime connectivity. Cybersecurity is emerging as one of key areas in international security. Three sets of issues which deserve mention are those relating to internet governance, norms of state behavior in cyberspace, and technical cooperation. India, being one of the largest users of cyberspace and with huge technical capabilities, is naturally an important player in cybersecurity discussions. A large number of countries are willing to engage with India on these issues. A series of cybersecurity dialogues have been held in the recent past. Make in India gives an opportunity to develop ICT as well as cybersecurity products and services in India. Cybersecurity will remain a major area of engagement for India with the rest of the world. Now, what does it mean for Indo-US relations? All this shows that India is no longer a reluctant engager. It's looking towards a win-win situation by engaging with all countries, including the US. The reason I highlighted these trends in India's foreign policy in some detail is because I see that the United States figures very prominently in each of these areas and is likely to be central to India's engagement with the world over the next few decades. Whether it is in the field of technology, maritime security, cyberspace, or connectivity, the US will be a key partner. The US is also central to furthering India's domestic priorities. At the same time, by engaging with India in these areas, major benefits will also accrue to the US. I think the Foreign Secretary talked about Indo-US relationship in the inaugural session. But some features of Indo-US relations stand out and should be noted. For much of the Cold War period, India and US have been estranged from each other despite the fact that they shared common democratic values. The fact was that the geopolitical compulsions often trumped the democratic value sharing that India and US had. This is a lesson worth keeping in mind for future as well. National interests often prevail over common values. Yet, even during the period of estrangement, and this is important to note, the contacts between the two sides were not lost. India sought US help during the 1962 conflict with China. The US assisted India in its national development by helping set up IITs and in initiating the Green Revolution. The US help to India under PL 480 at a time when India was facing critical food shortages is remembered even now. In the post-Cold War period, despite tremendous opposition in the US to India's nuclear program, India and the US, taking note of the new international environment, began to engage with each other. President Clinton and Prime Minister Vajpayee began the process of engagement soon after India's nuclear tests, while President Bush and PM Vajpayee initiated the next steps in strategic partnership. Bush-Singh transformed the relationship to a strategic and global partnership by signing the famous Indo-US nuclear deal. President Obama and Prime Minister Modi have now set up an ambitious agenda to take the relationship further into the 21st century by enhancing engagement in diverse sectors. The reasons for this transformation were clear. the change in the global security landscape due to a variety of reasons, including the rise of China, the opening of the Indian economy and its consequent growth, and the rise of non-state actors and terrorism, and the increasing salience of global security issues, which could be resolved only through global cooperation. Due to rapid transformation of the global and regional security environment, the US made a determination, and this has been said by many US leaders, that a strong India is in US interest. That is why it signed the Indo-US nuclear deal and is now helping India to get the membership of multilateral export control regimes. On its part, India realized that a strong partnership with the US will help build India's capabilities. India will need US support if it has to get membership of the UNSC or export control regimes. Thus, Indo-US partnership is based on convergence of interests in the backdrop of a rapidly changing international situation. But here, I think we should also take note of the fact that this relationship is mutually beneficial. It is not a one-sided relationship. And here, and which is often overlooked, is the fact that India has also been contributing to the US in various ways. The US may be a global power, but India has also been helping US in its own way. Let's look at a few statistics to support this argument. Contribution of Indian Americans. There are about 3 million Indian Americans comprising about 1% of the US population. They have made significant contribution in the political, bureaucratic, scientific, technical, academic, economic, legal, financial, and cultural communities of the US. According to a University of California, Berkeley study, almost 1/3 of the engineers in Silicon Valley are of Indian descent, while 7% of Silicon Valley high-tech firms are led by Indian CEOs. Indian Americans have made significant contribution in strategic laboratories, institutions, and global companies of the US. Indian Americans have high per capita incomes and highest educational levels of all ethnic groups in the US. Then you have the Indian students. According to the US Department of Commerce, international students contribute more than US $24.7 billion to the US economy. Indian students account for about 12% of foreign student population in the US. So if you put these figures together, this means that Indian students alone are contributing several $billion per annum to the US economy by way of payment of tuition fees alone. And of course, many of them go on to join the US economy in various ways. Then look at the Indian investments in the US. Almost 8% of India's outward FDI goes to the US. Several high-profile Indian investments worth several $1 billion are planned in several critical areas, such as shale gas and iron ore pelletization. And I'm sure you will have more figures during the course of the discussions in this conference. The Indian investments have also been helping in the creation of jobs in the US. Indian investments, the Indian IT BPO sector is supporting over 300,000 jobs in the US, including direct and ancillary ones. India's iconic IT companies have employed thousands of US workforce. The defense aircraft, P-81 Maritime patrol aircraft, C-130J, Hercules, and C-17 Globemasters purchased by India support more than 40,000 jobs in the US. Then there is a very important aspect of Indians being engaged in the community development or with the communities in the US. It's often overlooked that Indian companies are also contributing towards community activities in the US. Leading Indian companies have made donations to the famous US business schools and universities. One Indian company in the US is supporting young women engaged in agricultural activities to pursue college degrees and providing homes to war veterans and war widows in the US. Another Indian company recruited Iraq war veterans to increase their employability in the software industry and has also trained school teachers in Boston. The list goes on. Now, it is in this backdrop that we should examine President Obama's visit to the US, to India. I think the details are all known, but the visit stands out to my mind, for three reasons. One was the extraordinary chemistry between the two leaders that was at display for all to see. The second was the resolution of differences over the nuclear liability issue, and this has been achieved, and hopefully there will be some progress now in terms of investments into the nuclear energy sector. And the third was an unprecedented declaration aligning India's Act East policy with US pivot to Asia policy, encompassing Asia-Pacific and the Indian Ocean region. The possibilities of cooperation between the two countries in the Indian Ocean region is of great importance. Of course, there have been numerous other areas of cooperation and that were identified during the visit. Many of these have been identified earlier also: defense, homeland security, counterterrorism, maritime security, clean energy, education, skills, smart cities, and so on. The visit took place at a time when the Indian economy is once again picking up momentum. This will create major opportunities for Indo-US economic relationship to flourish. US companies have the opportunity to invest in India's growing economy and also take advantage of the Indian market, technology, skilled workers, etc. Indo-US trade in goods and services is about $100 billion per annum today. This can increase many folds in future. Similarly, the contribution of US investments in the Indian FDI is only 7%. This is also below par. In fact, India invests more than $1 billion in the US every year. India's flagship programs like Make in India should provide opportunities for US companies. India is also trying to make it easier for foreign companies to do business here. The enhancement of FDI ceiling to 49% in the defense sector is a major step forward. FDI cap in the insurance sector is also likely to be revised soon, and there has been some bill that has been passed recently in Rajya Sabha. We may ask, what are the future prospects for this relationship? I think we should look at the geopolitical environment. The geopolitical environment is in a flux and changing rapidly. The developments in West Asia, Europe, East Asia, and Southeast Asia can have unpredictable consequences for the world. The multilateral system is under stress and is unable to satisfactorily deal with the problems of international security. The rise of non-state actors has been a major challenge to international security. The number of weak and unstable states is on the rise. Terrorist networks are expanding their influence. Cybersecurity is emerging as a major challenge of our times. Food security and water security are also key challenges. The agreement on climate change at Paris in 2015, if arrived at, will be an important landmark in the evolution of international order. Indo-US partnership will have to deal with these factors of instability. The premise on which the current relationship is based is that Indo-US relationship will be a factor of stability in turbulent times. But the two sides will have to invest in the relationship and work on convergences while managing differences. They will also have to show sensitivity to each other's concerns. The challenge both countries will face will be how to address the possible differences that might arise without weakening the partnership. In this, I think public perceptions will play a very important role. Public perception, media, and social media will also have an impact on the evolution of strategic partnership between India and US. Sometimes Tier 2 and Tier 3 issues overtake Tier 1 issues. Both sides will need to maintain a balance in their perspectives. The US is no doubt a global preeminent power, but its leading position is under some challenge from several quarters. It is looking for ways to maintain its preeminent position. More important, it is also looking for partners. On the other hand, India is seen as an emerging power. It wants to engage with other powers as an equal power. Its policy will be a multi-vector policy. India values the independence in foreign policy in an increasingly multipolar world. Just as the US has many key relationships, India also has many relationships too, important relationships. It would not like to see itself in a position where one relationship is at the expense of the other. It has built some of its capacities, but still has some distance to go before it addresses the problems of growth and development. India's view of the regional developments may be at some times at variance with that of the US. This should be expected and factored into our relationship. In conclusion, where are we headed? In the end, the strongest argument for Indo-US cooperation is the growing interdependence between the two sides. From the Indian perspective, the US is a key partner to realize India's priorities of energizing its economy, raising technological levels, securing India, and ensuring a favorable balance of power in Asia. These Indian goals are not at odds with those of the US. In fact, they are complementary. As long as the relationship is based on equality, people-to-people contacts, bonds of shared values, economic interdependence, and geostrategic convergence, there is enough room for optimism. It must be recognized that Indo-US partnership also have a global character. The partnership should contribute to global and regional stability. In particular, India and the US can shape the geopolitical order in the Asia-Pacific into an open, inclusive, and Asian order. Let me quote President Obama and Prime Minister Modi from the joint article they wrote in September 2014, in which they defined the partnership, Indo-US partnership, as a global and a defining partnership for the 21st century. They wrote, "The promise of a better tomorrow is not solely for Indians and Americans. It also beckons us to move forward for a better world." This is the central premise of our defining partnership for the 21st century. Forward we go, challenge saath saath. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gupta, for a very illuminating talk. Coming as it did after the Foreign Secretary's talk in the morning, and now your talk, I think, has put the entire Indo-US relations into the very correct perspective. And there's no doubt, which has come out loud and clear, that there is a big convergence of interest between the two countries. And also, this relationship will be mutually benefiting. But I pick up the last word which you spoke. I think our relationship should also contribute towards a better world. So that's a very, very important aspect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all that remains is for me to request to give a very warm round of applause to our guest, Dr. Gupta. After that, we move on to the first session on the emerging regional security order in Asia and its impact on Indo-US bilateral relations. It will be headed by Mr. Ambassador Lalit Man Singh, our former Foreign Secretary and a very senior diplomat. As a matter of fact, he was the ambassador in US when I happened to visit US as the chief. So, and that time I could see as to how much hope he was placing into the relationship between India and the US. We also are fortunate to have another foreign secretary. It's a very important issue. Mr. Kanwal Sibal, Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, for this particular session. So we have a plethora of very experienced people, and then of course from the US, Mr. Ashley Tellis. I like to call him half Indian, but I don't know whether he'll go like that. Because the number of time he visits in here. So he needs no introduction. And last of all, President Kempe, the President and CEO of Atlantic Council. They would be the participants. So you have a very distinguished gallery for the first session. So on to the first session, we move on to now. There. Thank you.